Today it's time to put the engine back into the frame. You can't put the engine back in the frame without the fuel tank in place first. Well, you can't put the fuel tank in after the engine's in place, so fuel tank's got to go in first. This is just a shot of some of the gear that I've pulled out of this bike when I was dismantling it. There's the fuel tank. I don't know what it's like inside. It's got a bit of dirt on top of it. It's got a fuel cap. It's got a petcock on it. I'm going to swap the petcock to a new one, a new vacuum one. Get the tank mounted in the frame so that I can put the engine in. I will then probably release the tank. The tank's best sort of drop down a bit so you can run the loom and stuff later, but I'll mount it properly first and then fit the engine and then worry about dropping the tank down a little bit to get cables around it later. There's only a little bit of crap laying around the outlet petcock there and a little bit a red dot on the floor there. So not much to clean out of this fuel tank. It'll clean up alright. Yeah, just eventually get a better shot. That's what we're dealing with. I've got some kerosene I'm going to shake around in there first of all. That's the cleaned up fuel tank mounted back in the frame and screwed in temporarily. The coil bracket forms one of the nuts on this corner of the fuel tank. That's a new vacuum petcock mounted up under there. A tube on it has meant I've been able to blow in the top there, measure to see that the petcock is shutting off when there's no vacuum, works when it's in prime. That's come together quite neat. I've wire brushed the bolts and the washers and made sure that there was spaces in the rubbers on the fuel tank before that tightened up so that they tighten up tightly. Yeah, it's good as new. This motor's ready to go back in the frame. I've got the engine rubber mounts, there's the front one and the two rear ones ready to slip in once it's swung around in the frame. It's on this scissor lift table, so I'm going to swing it around and reverse it in alongside the frame over there and lower it down and hopefully just slide it across into the bike. Well, that's it back in position, bolted in. It's the second time I've fitted an engine now, so it went quite easy. Next job is to feed some loom around. I've been fitting some parts back on. It's a long, tedious process. The loom is fitted now, and now most of the electrical components have been mated up. The coil, CDI box, voltage regulator, starter solenoid, neutral relay, some fuses there, the horn, the throttle cable and the handbrake cable and the choke cable all feed through a bottleneck here. Go down over the top of the petrol tank under this rubber, there, just in here. And it needs to be kept clear of the screws that go through here that hold the control levers. The control levers mate up through this U shape here, and that fork there is the reverse one, comes up through the floor of the rubber in that slot there. There may well be fuel lines and things and speedo cables and things needing going to this rubber as well. I think I've got most of the things in place. I'm starting to work on the control levers for the gearbox. I've just mounted that bracket. I'm going to mount this is the reverse cable. I'll perhaps mount it first. That's the sequential gearbox cable that goes to the pedal. Both of those have got I know they've got fair old bends in them. The one that comes right from the transfer box cable that comes from here and has got a cut across to over where the exhaust goes is quite tight, and then you start getting in the way of the snorkel. So a whole lot of things have sort of got to come together fairly quickly. I've still got to do a fair bit of work on the exhaust. It's a pleasure fitting clean components back on the bike, but it all takes time. Get out to your shed and have some fun.